What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. If you're a hunter who's struggled to get through all 50 waves of Legendary Onslaught, then you are in luck, because today we're going to be checking out one of the most impressive builds that will absolutely dominate in Onslaught, even at its legendary difficulty. You'll have a rare mix of both immense power and unparalleled crowd control to get you through each and every wave. One of the most beneficial aspects of this build is that you'll be creating an endless supply of orbs to keep your and your allies' abilities and supers charged. This build revolves around the use of the Orpheus rig's exotic boots, a very old but extremely effective exotic that has gotten the spotlight once more thanks to the HORDE mode style that Onslaught features. But this isn't your typical tether build. We've added several different elements into our overall loadout to give the Orpheus rigs more power than ever before. The Orpheus rigs provides the Uncanny Arrows intrinsic trait, and this provides a benefit to both Deadfall and to Mobius Quiver. But we're more interested in the benefits to Deadfall. This will give you ability energy off of each enemy that gets caught in your tether. You'll gain 10% grenade, melee, and class ability off of each enemy. And you'll gain as much as 50% additional super energy, which will greatly improve our ability to keep those tethers launching out. To maximize on the ability energy and orb creation that tethers will give us, it's important to get a good placement on each tether. Teammates are going to be ready to blow the heads off of any enemy that spawns up. So instead of trying to lead enemies into a tether, drop that tether right into their spawn location. And if you're dropping a tether mid-engagement, then you'll want to put it wherever the enemies are funneling towards. On a map like Midtown, you have a lot of hallways with intersections, and those are perfect for a good tether. Timing is just as crucial as placement. As an example, if it's towards the end of a wave and there's not many enemies left, you'd be much better off holding that tether until the start of the next wave. So don't get trigger happy just because you got your super energy. On its own, Orpheus rigs is going to give us a lot of ability energy, but with how we have the rest of this subclass set up, we'll have so much more. In terms of aspects, we're going with Stylish Executioner and Vanishing Step. The choice in aspects really comes down to your preferred playstyle and how much you want to remain invisible. Since we will be weakening most every enemy we're engaged with, Stylish Executioner will be able to continuously get triggered. I do typically enjoy the use of Trapper's Ambush, but I find it to be far less beneficial in Onslaught, where there's a lot of exploding enemies and bigger tankier enemies that we would rather just not be up close to. As far as fragments go, we've got Echo of Undermining, which gives our Vortex grenades the ability to weaken enemies with a 15% debuff, causing them to take more damage from us and allies. We've also got Echo of Harvest, and that's going to be really beneficial because it's going to create orbs and void breaches whenever defeating weakened enemies. It does have a 10-second cooldown, but this will significantly increase our orb production, and intrinsically, void breaches provide 12.5% class ability energy, allowing us to perform our marksman or gambler's dodge much more often. We're also using Echo of Starvation, so when we collect orbs or void breaches, we'll gain Devour, and when Devour is active, Final Blows will grant us health recovery and bonus grenade energy, allowing us to weaken enemies much more often, and we'll still have our Snare Bomb as an extra way of weakening enemies. We're also using Echo of Reprisal, so when we are surrounded by enemies, which is going to happen a lot, we'll gain a small amount of extra super energy off of each Final Blow, and that does include any enemy who's already tethered. So at this point, we've got ourselves some really good ability uptime, and we've got a lot of orbs that are going to get generated. So let's check out our armor and see what our armor mods are going to do for us. When it comes to character stats, resilience is always going to be a crucial stat to focus on, but intellect will also be a great stat to invest towards so that we can reduce the base cooldown of our super energy. As it stands right now, we've invested a lot towards mobility and strength so that we can have our smoke bomb and dodging ability available more often. Since we're a little short on resilience, we've opted into using Fonts of Endurance, and this is going to give us 50 extra points of resilience whenever we do have armor charges active. And since we'll be creating a ton of orbs, we'll always have armor charges active. To increase our orb generation, we are using Siphon mods on our helmet and Reaper mods on our class item, and currently we have 2 of each, which will reduce the cooldown that is imposed after creating an orb. We've got Ashes to Assets, and this grants a small amount of additional super energy whenever defeating enemies with a grenade. This isn't a lot of energy off of each final blow, but it will add up pretty quick. On our gloves, we've got 2 impact induction mods, so that our charge melee will give us grenade energy. With 2 of these mods, that's going to give us 17% extra energy. We've also got a bolstering detonation mod, giving us 12% extra class ability energy whenever we hit enemies with our grenade. On our boots, we've got insulation to give us extra class ability energy whenever we collect orbs. Since Devour is already getting triggered to give us health, there's no real need in running Better Already or Recuperation. So instead, we could use Weapon Surge mods to give us as much as a 17% damage bonus to whichever energy type we choose. Because of our current weapon selection, I've opted to go with a Kinetic Surge mod and a Solar Surge mod, giving each of these weapon types a 10% increase in damage whenever armor charges are active. When it comes to our choice in weapons, there is some flexibility, but our main goal is to ensure that we can have all 3 champion types handled. And we start with the use of the Midnight Coup, which is going to stun unstoppable champions. This is a new Brave weapon that can drop with Firefly and One for All, which is the role that we're using. And we're using this because of how it synergizes with our seasonal artifact, which we'll talk about here soon. These Brave weapons also come with the Indomitability origin trait, which is going to give us 5 extra % grenade energy off of each final blow. In our energy slot, we've got the Indebted Kindness, a rocket sidearm from the Warlord's Ruin, and it deals out an incredible amount of damage. And the weapon traits that we really want to look for will be Lead from Gold and Volt Shot. This way we'll have extra ammo, and we'll have an extra way to stun overload champions. And in our heavy slot, we've got the Dragon's Breath. The Gallarhorn would make a great alternative option, but the Dragon's Breath is able to scorch and ignite a lot of enemies all at once, which really helps out when you're in a horde mode. And if you have the Catalyst unlocked, it will also create fire sprites, which are going to give us more grenade energy, providing an additional 12.5% energy off of each fire sprite. The ignitions created from Dragon's Breath will stun unstoppable champions, and with the Overload Rocket artifact mod, it'll also stun overloads. And with the seasonal artifact in mind, let's take a look at some of the mods that will benefit this build. Since we're using Dragon's Breath and the Midnight Coup with Firefly, we can take advantage of a few different solar-oriented mods. Flint Striker will cause us to become radiant whenever we rapidly defeat enemies with solar weapons or solar abilities, which includes ignitions from the Dragon's Breath and the Midnight Coup's Firefly explosions. Once we're radiant, we'll have a 20% increase to all weapon damage, and any weapon that's not already predisposed to handle a champion will have the ability to pierce barrier shields. Kindling Trigger will give Dragon's Breath the ability to add extra scorch damage to any unscorched enemy. And with the use of Revitalizing Blast, whenever we strike bosses or champions with solar abilities like the Scorch and ignitions that Dragon's Breath creates, those enemies will become weakened with another 15% debuff. It doesn't stack onto our Void debuff, but it gives us another option to continuously weaken enemies. Even though we've already allocated the use of our armor charges to go to fonts and weapon surges, we could still look at utilizing Blast Radius and Argent Ordnance. This way, final blows with the Dragon's Breath will grant additional armor charges, and whenever we have armor charges active, the Dragon's Breath will have a 15% increase in damage, which would stack on top of Radiance and weapon surges. And the last artifact mod to point out is Wished into Being. This will provide us with extra orbs. Whenever we are close to having our super energy full, which is at about the 70% mark, an ability final blow will cause 3 orbs to be generated, and this is in addition to any other orbs that would have already been created. So if it wasn't obvious already, we're going to be creating a ton of orbs, a ton of void breaches, a ton of fire sprites, and racking up a ton of kills. And with that, we have now come full circle on this extraordinary hunter build that is outright dominating Legendary Onslaught right now. So if you've been trying to use the Gerfalcons, the Omnioculus, or a number of other hunter builds, but you just continue to fail at completing those 50 waves, well, try out this Orpheus rigs build, and let me know how it works out for you. And with that said, I wish you all the best of luck out there this season. Let me know how your runs have been going, and what your thoughts of this hunter build are. Let us know down in the comments below. If you need help putting together your own version of today's build, you can find a Destiny item manager link down in the description below. And if you are a new or returning Guardian looking for a place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's also in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.